again, and welcome to The Luxury Choice, a B2B sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer at George James, and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. And today I'm joined by my two colleagues, Pascal Floch and Christian Walter. So, gentlemen, good morning. How are you both? How was your weekend?
Good morning. Very, very good. Great weekend. I helped friends to organize their move to a new house. So Quite a physical weekend.
Good. Yeah, getting some exercise in then. And how about you, Christian? You were busy, I think. You were flying around.
Oh yeah, yes. I was actually flying back from the UK. I spent a week in London attending a module at my former business school, which was excellent and a really great opportunity.
Sure.
And
were you delayed? Were you stuck in the storm at all, Christian? Did you get delayed?
Not at all. No, I was lucky because I only flew Sunday, and Sunday was quite calm.
Right. Yeah, I was in Glasgow middle of last week. I was there for more of a social event than a business event. It was a couple of days holiday for me, and I was at Glasgow Airport on Thursday, and of course the storm was coming in, and that alarm they put round on the phones went off on about 4,000 mobile phones at the same time in the airport. It was literally, it was like going through each one. All this alarm came through warning everybody of impending doom coming in. I think the whole city was closing down that day. Anyway, this isn't the weather forecast. This is a sales podcast. Our topic for today is delegation. And delegation is a key skill, both for managers and I think also for salespeople as well. And we're going to look at how we can delegate effectively and when we should delegate and why delegating is important. But I think first of all, we need to define what do we mean by delegation. Now, we don't necessarily need to look up an Oxford English Dictionary delegation of the definition of delegation, but for the purposes of the pod, what do we mean by delegation, Christian? What would you think delegation is, for that matter?
I'd probably say it's a shared task, let's start again. It's a task that helps to achieve a shared goal.
Okay.
And that task is assigned to either a team member or a colleague or somebody in your network.
Right. Okay. So shared goal, shared task assigned to somebody in the organization. Anything else on that, Pascal, do you think?
I would definitely agree with Christian, and maybe to add on it a bit, would be also a sign of trust.
Yeah, good point.
A way to empower people, to give them the feeling that they can trust themselves to get things done.
Absolutely. And I think it's important we recognize that delegation isn't abdication. Sort of passing something on that you don't want to do, or that you find difficult, or you don't like doing, or you just wash your hands of it, really. And I know I've been guilty of that many times in my career. So why do we think that people find it hard to delegate? So we've talked a lot in this podcast series about the new manager and the manager that's been promoted from within the team or in their first managerial role. And I think often they find it perhaps very difficult to delegate. Why do you think that might be, Christian?
I think Pascal is onto a winner here with the trust issue. I believe that particularly if you don't know your team so well and you don't know yourself so well as a leader, which is often the case with young leaders, probably it's harder to trust somebody else to be able to do the job. And you think, I might as well just do it myself. It's quicker and I know what I'm doing. And I think that can then lead into a very unhealthy spiral.
Right. So I know how to do it. I'm not sure the other person knows how to do it. I'm just going to get it done because I'm the best person to do it. How would that impact the team dynamics, do you think, Pascal, if we kind of took that approach as a manager?
Probably a couple of consequences there. So first of all, there is an efficiency issue because if the manager keeps centralizing everything because he thinks that he's the one who knows how to get things done or how to do things, it will take more time to get things done, and it will be difficult to increase the let's say the progress within the team.
Yeah.
And the other aspect would be that people will probably start to take less initiatives or becoming more passive, so just waiting.
Okay, that's a good point.
Manager's instructions. So I would say that the team dynamics will probably decrease, and effectiveness will suffer from it.
Right. So the manager, well, he always does things anyway, or she always does stuff anyway. So why do I bother? Almost really, and I know they're going to take it over from me. They're going to do it themselves. We'll just let the boss do everything. It's kind of that mindset, I guess. Really, yeah. If we get the ultimate result, if the results are what we need to do, why is that a problem? I mean, I think I know the answer to that, but why is it a problem? What would be the implication of doing that? Do you think, guys?
Yeah, maybe one of the biggest problems we all face is that the sum of tasks we have to execute is bigger than the available time.
Right.
And I think that's particularly true for managers, is also true for salespeople. And to prioritize tasks is an extremely important topic for everybody. And so we normally teach the Eisenhower matrix to people, where we have urgency on the x-axis and importance on the y-axis.
Right.
So if something's important and urgent, then it's something we should do ourselves immediately.
Yeah.
If something's not urgent but important, we can do it ourselves later. If something's urgent but not important, we could delegate the task. And if it's neither urgent nor important, we should don't do it at all and put it into a weight paper basket. Okay?
So I've not heard that called the Eisenhower matrix. I'm familiar with that from the Stephen Covey book of...
no, this comes from General Eisenhower
right.
from the Second World War, yes.
Okay.
That was his approach. And of course, the answer then, often by salespeople in particular, they say, yeah, I wish I could delegate, but I don't have my own team.
Right.
And I think that there is some truth in that, but I don't think that not having your own team prevents you completely from delegating.
Okay. Let's find out a bit more about that next. I think that's a really interesting topic, and I think many salespeople listen to this would probably think, that doesn't make sense. So, Pascal, what are your thoughts on that? If you're a salesperson or an account manager, do you have the opportunity to delegate? When should you delegate? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Christian mentioned, it's not because you have not a manager role that you cannot delegate. Of course, there is the Eisenhower aspect or matrix aspect with the not important, not urgent. I should not do it. And if it's not, let's say, not urgent and important, I could consider, should consider first to do it. But then who else could help me at least? And who else could do it instead of me? That could be another dimension of it. The point is that as a sales person in an organization, you have to deal with services, with legal, with marketing, and so on. So there are a number of things that probably others can help, or others could be the owner instead of you, because one of the bias we have when we are salesperson, we take accountability for a number of things and probably too many. So it's important to reflect and get back to what your priorities are, what your job role is, and who is supposed to do what. So you can then think about delegation in a more easier way. That's what I would consider here.
I think there's some really great points there, and it impacts things like time management, prioritization, effectiveness in the field, goal setting, all those things. Thinking back to my own career when I was working in the United States in start of the century, and there was just me and I had one part-time employee, and that was it. And we had a little office, and I was the sales director, but I was also the network administrator. I was the product specialist. Sometimes I was the storeman, and all those things. That's because we just didn't have the people. But I guess most people listening to this work for a reasonably large organization where there's all the things you'd expect in a company, really. I think particularly for people who are account managers. Now, I was not a great account manager. I'm much more of a hunter than a farmer in sales. But people who whose job is to look after an existing number of customers across all levels of those organizations. Do you think sometimes that we can, because we're the account manager, do you think sometimes we can get involved in things that perhaps aren't our core skills or our core responsibility, and then we could take the opportunity to delegate a bit more? What do you think about that one, Christian?
I think it's a fine line, because if you're the account manager, you're the customer's ambassador.
Absolutely.
And if you don't take ownership of the customer's problems, who will? However, I think the secret then would be not to find the solution yourself, but perhaps make sure that somebody else does. And so the customer actually gets a result or gets an answer and doesn't get disappointed. So,
right.
So yes, I think the secret is to take ownership for the situation or for the challenge, but not necessarily for the execution, because there might be much more suited people for a particular question or for a particular problem.
I see you nodding, Pascal. You agree on that one?
Yeah, definitely. I have in mind the picture of the orchestra conductor. So the conductor is not supposed to play all the instruments, but maybe he knows a couple of them. Maybe he can play 2 or 3 of them, but not all. So the thing is that he's conducting. All the others is coordinating, so that there is nice music at the end.
Hopefully.
Play all the instruments, and that's about delegation in that case. So the sales account manager is like the conductor. So he's accountable, is responsible for the outcome, but he is not the one to do everything. And
that's a great analogy.
It reminds me a story. So one of the sales reps in my team at some point had key accounts for years and years. So he knew them very well. And he was so proud that customers called him on his mobile phone, and that on the other side, he got the mobile phone of his customers. Fine, great. The point is that every time there was an issue, then he was called. So that means that the application people were not called, services were not called, support was not called as well. So he was the one centralizing everything, and he was, unfortunately, the one also to, let's say, limit and to postpone every possibility to quickly solve customer issues. So step by step, we discussed, and he realized that he had to get things done by others, so that his customers that he wanted to help the most were supported in a better way. So that's the typical, dilemma that salespeople may have to get things, let's say, to get his customers supported by others, not only by him or her, and trust others to help.
And that's that word again, trust. Yeah. I think that's a super point, really, because if for all the right reasons, and I do take your point on this, Christian, that if the account manager wants to be the conductor, the focal point for everything, then he or she could be the rate limiting step. If there are things that need to be done and everything has to go through the account manager, and the account manager is dealing with another account, or dare I say even on holiday or ill or something, then what the customer needs gets stopped or gets slowed down because of that. So I guess that's a danger, Christian, we need to think about in these roles.
Yeah, so I think there is, there is Eisenhower matrix applies to everybody, and you never have sufficient time. I would like to enter into another aspect, perhaps, of delegation, and maybe now look at the sales manager or sales leader.
Okay.
I believe that it is extremely important to delegate in the right manner, and delegation is the opposite of micromanagement. So if we delegate, we should delegate the what and the when. We shouldn't delegate the how. So in other words, we should trust the people we delegate to find the best way of solving that task. And if we start telling them what to do, how to do, when to do, and when to take a break, when to go home at night, when to wake up, when to have a toilet break. That takes the franchise out of people. That takes the autonomy out of people, and they cannot be good at executing tasks.
That's a super point. And the title of this podcast is How to Delegate Effectively. So it's delegating, as you say, it's the what and the when. What about the why, though? What about the why we need to get it done? How do we approach that one? Either of you?
I think the why is extremely important, but it's not necessarily part of the task. So, we should always share the reason for a particular activity and make sure that our people understand why we're doing something and what the purpose is. Because if they have purpose, they can do a much better job. But in the actual act of delegating, I think perhaps the what and the when, never the how. And yes, the why, if time permitting.
Yeah, fabulous. Love that. Is there a danger here, though, that because we want to be an empowering manager and all the good things we've just talked about, that we can give people tasks or delegate things to people who perhaps don't know how to do things, or they're too inexperienced, or they're new in their career? I see you nodding, Pascal. What are the dangers there, do you think?
Yeah, well, thanks for this point, Steve, because of course, delegation is key for a sales leader, a sales manager, because again, it's about building trust and empowering your team, but you have also to select what you delegate to. So it could be related to how advanced or senior a salesperson is, but it also related to what type of skills and potential this person has. So as a sales leader, you have first to assess your team members when this is about skills and potential. Listen and ask around also what others people think about them. And based on this, you make your mind, and you can probably delegate in a smarter way to increase the chance of everyone who has things being delegated from you to be successful. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, I think, is as Christian said, you have to understand how to delegate. Is of course you define what is going to be delegated. You have to define also a time scale, the outcome being expected. And depending on how advanced the person is, you have to consider to be there as a, let's say, support, more or less extended, and be clear also with the person about what will be the checkpoint. When do we have checkpoint together to see about the progress or any difficulties? This is about this. This is key, and something that probably number of sales leaders, and I did it, from time to time, but I realized that it was important, is to also inform others around that something is being delegated to someone from my team. So it will be the central point of contact for this project, not me. That's very important to avoid confusion. And to also empower, the person you just delegated a task.
Some great points there. The importance of sharing with the rest of the team, communicating with them that, we've got this task and this person is driving that task, not me, not the manager. But I guess also to stay connected. Again, we don't want to abdicate it to the person. We've got to say, right, this is down to you. Off you go. We need to stay at least connected to that team in case they need our support and our backup. While we were talking on those guys, I was thinking about the concept of situational leadership, which I know you're both very familiar with, and we cover in our sales leadership training program. Delegating to people who have got the knowledge and the skills, I think is a great task. But to people who are new in job and probably do need a bit more direction from you, perhaps not micromanagement, but certainly direction, I think we've got to be careful about delegating too early to those kind of people. If they're very new in role, new in the company, new in the job, if we were to delegate straight away to those kind of people, I think that might create some issues for them in terms of not knowing how to do things. And if we're then absent without leave and leave those people alone, I think that might create some issues. Am I overthinking that, Christian, or is that a danger?
No, I don't think you're overthinking. I think you have to be appropriate in your delegation, and I mean
situational. Yeah.
You know, you've been a father, or you're a father as well, and with children, we experiment as well with delegation. So we can delegate them tasks, and of course, the tasks you can delegate to children are different when they're 3 years old or 5 years old. Or 15 years old. However, I think the important element that stays the same is that once a task is delegated, you shouldn't take it back and you shouldn't interfere. You should actually let the person do it, execute it, make mistakes if necessary, learn from their mistakes, and perhaps afterwards have a feedback session. But the worst thing that we can do is actually delegate the task and say, hey, Jack, you're going to do this now. And then a week later, we're not sure anymore if Jack can do it. And we kind of take it back. And I think that is a very dangerous notion, because it will make Jack feel really bad.
Yeah.
And it will not accomplish the goal of the task. So where I agree with you, Steve, is we need to delegate tasks only within the scope of ability of the person that gets the task, but we need to be quite strict with the process and with the execution, because otherwise it gets very messy.
So if we've delegated a task to Jack, and Jack's got a team together to work on the task, can we ever be part of the team, or are we always just somebody that the team calls in if they need us to? What's your thought on that one, Pascal?
Yes, I'm not sure I got it. Can you please?
Well,
repeat?
I mean, so if you're Jack, Pascal, and I've said, right, Pascal, I'd love you to work on this task. Get a team together and let me know what resources you need and what support you need. Would there ever be a situation where you'd come to me and say, if I'm the boss, hey, Steve, could you be part of the team? Or do we always need to stay one step away from it, really? Would bringing the boss into the team affect the task, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that if I would be Jack.
Or Jacques?
Jack. Yeah. So, first of all, I would make sure I understood, what the task is, my boss. So there is a checkpoint, even before I agree, is that, okay, is it really what you're asking or proposing me to do, and so on? What is the timeline? When is the deadline?
Yeah. What
the resources I may need, on top of, what I can provide myself.
Sure.
And if everyone is okay, then I move on. And, again, if I would be Jack, I would not be shy to ask, let's say, around some help. And if things are not moving in the right direction, raise my hand and ask support. So,
right.
It's not to make any effort and raise your hand, after a few seconds. It's just that if things are not really evolving while time flies, then you cannot wait for any longer. So that's about it. Maybe I switch gears now, and if I am the sales manager, I should also think about, okay, why I am delegating this to Jack, okay? It should be part of a plan to make it more effective. What I mean here is that delegating something to someone could be part of his skills development plan.
Right.
In that case, being part of such a big plan makes more sense, because you can agree at the beginning of the year what your skills development could be, and then when let's say delegation comes, you can realize or you can bridge things together, and it gives more power, and it motivates much more, the person you delegate to.
Super points, Pascal. I think we've had a great discussion, guys, in terms of delegation and why it's an important skill as a manager or as a salesperson. Would there be a time, as it's kind of a final thought, would there be a time where we should not delegate?
Yes, there is. But before we go there, can I make one more point, which actually came up in Pascal's discussion or in your question? Could the boss be ever part of a team for a task that he delegated? I believe yes. Depends on the boss and their leadership skills.
Yeah.
Because the danger is that if you delegate the task and stick around too much, the danger is that the person delegates the task back. And that actually is more common than you think, you know. In business, the boss says, hey, you should do this. And then the guy says, yeah. And eventually asks the boss for advice, for input, for suggestions, for help. And you know, sooner than you know, the boss is actually doing the task themselves. And I think this is a real danger in the whole delegation game. And so you should not allow that to happen.
Of course. Okay. Of course.
But back to your question, Steve, should a task, are there situations when delegation is wrong?
Yes, that was the question,
I believe there is, particularly when we have to lead by example.
Right.
So, you know, particularly also difficult jobs, the boss maybe should do themselves, rather than just delegate and lead from the front, so to speak. Rather than push people into a difficult situation.
Or even a no-win situation, Great point. Final thought from you, Pascal, before we wrap up? Any final thoughts on delegation? Anything we haven't covered?
Yeah, just to give echo to what Christian said. And again, times where it's not good to delegate. First is when someone is not mature enough or has not the capabilities to be able to deliver. So as a beginner, let's say when you have a beginner in the team, you should secure that he gets everything he needs to run and to deliver, but not starting to delegate for sure. And the other thing is that delegation is not get rid of things you don't want to do yourself. You know, so that's really an area you should avoid delegation, because then I can tell you that team members will realize this, and it will be very, very negative for everyone in the team.
Yeah, that's abdication, isn't it? Yeah, that's I don't want to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Find somebody else to do it for me. Yeah, great point. Christian, one final thought from you at all?
I believe if you delegate right, your team's going to grow, your people can develop, you will have more time to do the thinking, which is often the time that's missing. So to improve delegation skills and to work on getting better at delegating is a key leadership task.
Great point. And a great skill to learn if you're a salesperson as well, for that matter. Absolutely. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your thoughts today on this important topic, Christian and Pascal. If you want to find more about Christian and Pascal and what they do, then their LinkedIn page is a great place to start, as well as being trainers. They're both experienced coaches as well in France and in Switzerland, but of course, wherever the customer may be. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with another podcast and some other members of our training team. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, then don't forget to give us a review on Apple or Spotify. It does help us in lots of mysterious ways. And also subscribe to the show, so that way it means it will come into your inbox on a regular basis, in fact, every 2 weeks. We are having some guests coming up in the near future, so we are planning a special guest show around the time of International Women's Day, which is an important event in early March. And we are going to look at a particular show around the challenges and focus of women in business. So watch out for that show coming up in early March. In the meantime, happy selling out there, folks, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye now.